It is getting ugly for Lily Tino. Okay, so in case you couldn't hear that, what happened was Lily Tino was live streaming and somebody drove by and shouted from a car, "F you, Lily Tino, you effing prevert." But more on that in a second. Let's check this out.
Trans women can produce milk. Let's look at the science.
Okay, cool. But first, why are you dressed like Bob's Big Boy?
All human beings are born with something called mammary tissue.
Mammary tissue? I would refer to yours as cermary tissue.
It is ma'am.
But go on.
What happens to the mammary tissue depends on which hormone was in charge of your puberty. Testosterone, of course, doesn't do anything to the mammary tissue, which is why cisgender men don't have breasts.
We clearly don't know the same men.
Estrogen, on the other hand, develops the mammary tissue with all sorts of milk ducts and other goodies that make lactation possible.
Grapefruit has absolutely nothing to do with this. And is there a point? Because I'm going to be honest, Lily Tino, I don't really trust you to give me lessons in science.
And when a trans woman like me takes estrogen, after a few years, I too will have the ability to produce milk.
Girl, ain't nobody worried about you having the ability to produce radioactive powdered milk from your old dusty tritties. That's right, I said tritties. Figure it out. Now let's get back to you reacting to being cussed out on the street.
Y'all hear that? That's insane.
When you say insane, on a scale of a man putting on women's clothing and thinking that actually makes him a woman, and a man voluntarily cutting off his own cake pops, where would you say it lands?
Imagine being so insecure in yourself that you see a random person on the street that you don't know personally, and you're so filled with rage that you must roll your window down and scream at that person minding their own business.
Imagine the lack of self-awareness it takes to rage bait people to the point where they feel like they have to respond to you in public when they see you, and then having the nerve to chalk that up to their insecurity. So let's get into it. It was also about you giving reviews of the different women's bathrooms at Disneyland. It was also about you admitting to peeing standing up in the women's bathroom.
I peed standing up.
And it was also about you taking selfies in the women's bathroom.
Those Disney bathroom selfies got y'all real upset, huh?
So is it really just the world unfairly judging you because you're a trans woman? Or does your behavior actually need to be called out? What's up, everybody? So I wanted to review this exchange between Lily Tino and
Her.
aka Buffalo Grills, aka
Last summer, I got my cake pops removed.
aka Pennywise, and Dean Withers, because I really feel like in watching this video, you get a good sense of not only why it is Lily Tino behaves the way that Lily Tino continues to behave, but also the way that the people around Lily Tino, or that would be on Lily Tino's side, so to speak, as far as being on the left, refuse to actually be honest with this person and tell them how it is they're messing up. And I think Dean Withers is a perfect example of that, which if you aren't familiar, Dean Withers is a very popular left-wing creator that became well known from doing a Jubilee debate, and that's a lot of his format. So he was talking about Lily Tino on a live. Lily Tino decided to call in, but Dean really has to watch what he's saying and what he's doing because he doesn't want to piss off his left-wing audience. And that's what I think stops a lot of the trans activists or the people like Lily Tino that claim to be advocating for trans people from actually hearing the truth, is that the people that are on their side and are supposed to be their allies are too afraid to actually put it in a blunt way, so they never really get to hear the undiluted version of what it is they need to hear. And I hope one day Lily Tino does come across this video so that Lily Tino can get a better idea of the kind of stuff that Lily Tino would hear if they would talk to somebody that wasn't trying to handle them with kid gloves, if they would talk to somebody that really did believe in holding people like Lily Tino accountable. So without further ado, just to catch you up, Dean Withers was talking about Lily Tino's famous Disney incident when Lily Tino was explaining the way sex reassignment surgery works.
And the plan up until recently was to get my marshmallow wand reconfigured into a marshmallow tunnel.
And you could hear children in the background, and that caused a lot of backlash, and that's where we'll pick it up.
I am a very clocky trans woman.
I'll say. And for anybody that's not familiar with what the term clocky means, it basically just means that everybody can tell a particular person is trans. Where that actually comes from, just to give you a little bit of history on trans lingo, is an expression called getting your T clocked, which I know a lot of people in the mainstream now have popularized the term T, and that's where the clock that T comes from. But a lot of people spell it T-E-A in that instance, which is not truly correct because this does very much come from trans lingo. And the other day I had somebody arguing with me online and saying, that actually comes from black women, possibly black trans women. That part I can buy as believable. But the mainstream didn't really adopt clock that T or get your T clocked until just recently, where that's been a term since well before I came along and started hanging out with trans women in the 90s. But to tell you the correct way that should go is it should be a T like the letter T and not T like the kind of tea you sip. And the reason that it was a letter T is because the T stood for truth. And a trans woman's truth is that trans woman is a male. And so when somebody had clocked their T, that person had figured out their truth. And that was just a way that people would put it. And like I said, this is an expression from trans culture that goes way back. Another way people would put that in certain instances was getting spooked, or somebody had spooked your T. But just for short, people would refer to that as being spooked. And that's when, again, somebody had figured out your truth and that you were actually a male. But to be clear, even back in the day, people would still use the terms spilling the tea or giving the tea or getting the tea. But that's just because even from way back in the day, gays and trans people have always been super fun and really colorful in the way that they use their language. So anyway, to get back to what Lily Tino was saying, I think we can all agree that Lily Tino is pretty clocky if you consider Lily Tino to be a trans woman. Debatable, if you ask me.
I have a deep voice. I am tall. I have big bones, right? Like
the old I have big bones. But technically, males typically do have bigger bones than females.
I get a common criticism for me is that like, well, you're not, working hard enough or doing enough to, pass, right?
This is where I have to say that Lily truly starts being deceptive in the wording that they're choosing. Because Lily Tino has come out and outright said that Lily Tino makes no effort to pass anyway.
Passing is not my goal.
So when they're saying it sort of like, this is just a criticism people have of me. No, this is something that you've actually said is that you aren't trying to pass. It's not your goal to pass. So again, this is you asking for this attention, and then once you get it, acting like this is just something people say about me. No, this is actually a situation you created, and this is something that you have said about you.
So let's say that I was a passing trans woman who had a different voice, whose face looked a different way, who you maybe couldn't even tell necessarily was trans.
So a completely different person. Got it.
Let's say I made that exact same video in Disney. Do you think that the exact same criticisms would be levied against me if that were the case?
Okay, so what you failed to acknowledge or fully take accountability for is that you were in Disneyland, which is a children's theme park, where your audience could hear children playing in the background, but the content you were making was not appropriate for children.
I think Disney's going to ban me for this one.
So yes, I do think that absolutely anybody that was being inappropriate around children,
my corn dog is still intact,
would be catching the same heat that you ended up catching over your Disneyland video.
Well, I mean, I'd be making the exact same criticism about you, given that it created the same fear-mongering.
I take issue with the term fear-mongering. I want to point that out right now because you're going to hear it a lot, but we'll get back to that in a minute.
Right? Like by pushing that inflammatory boundary. Right?
Well, that's the thing, though. Would it? Right? I'm not talking about like your response to the fear-mongering. Do you think the fear-mongering would even happen
Okay, what everybody needs to understand is this is not about fear-mongering, because when they say fear-mongering, what they're trying to get at is that this was fear-mongering about trans people, when really it wasn't about trans people, and in order to make my point, I'll take trans people completely out of it. In December 2019, Lizzo had a scandal where Lizzo showed up to a basketball game, and obviously a live basketball game is what would be considered a family-friendly activity. There are children in attendance. Lizzo happened to be wearing a thong. Lizzo exposed her thong to dance and be cute and caught a bunch of backlash about it. And this was in 2019 when Lizzo was still considered to be kind of a darling in the media and everybody was loving the body positivity. And Lizzo is definitely an actual woman. So when you have an actual woman like Lizzo that at the time was very much loved by the public catching a bunch of backlash because she's being inappropriate around children, you have to understand it really is about you being inappropriate with children. If that example isn't good enough for you, just in 2025, Ice Spice, who was very popular until just recently, Ice Spice has kind of fallen off, but she's I guess you could say hip-hop artist, and she showed up to a SpongeBob movie premiere wearing a dress that was just see-through enough that you could completely make out the thong she was wearing under it. Again, this was a SpongeBob movie premiere, so who do you think's gonna be there? I'll give you a quick hint, probably children. Ice Spice caught a bunch of heat over that and a bunch of backlash, and not only is Ice Spice an actual woman, Ice Spice, because she fits a particular mold as far as body shape, would also be considered a beautiful woman. Nothing against Lizzo, but you know, bigger isn't always seen as beautiful in our society, which people can have whatever feelings they have about that, but for better or for worse, that's what it is. So when you have a big woman that's done it in the body positive way, and then you have what's considered a traditionally beautiful thinner woman doing the same thing in more of a sexy way, and both are considered inappropriate because they are being inappropriate around children at that point, whether that was their intention or not, trans people can't blame it on the it's just because I'm trans and not passable that people are even having this reaction. And nobody referred to it as being fear-mongering about women. So my point is, inappropriate is inappropriate, and your orientation or your gender identity do not excuse you from behaving in an appropriate way around children.
Yeah, I do. So listen, I could agree that maybe it wouldn't be exacerbated to the same extent. However, I still do think it would exist because ultimately, okay, a lot of the inflammatory pushback that you hear from the right to create fear-mongering generated on the basis of severe content.
And I just want to point out, you're going to hear Dean Withers say the word exacerbated more than once in this clip, and it really bothers me because the word is exacerbated, and this doesn't really matter, and it's not a part of the point that I'm making, but I just want to say I really hate that he says exacerbated more than once. But the more important thing that I want to point out at this point is Dean, while he is being firm with Lily Tino and expressing that he doesn't agree with Lily Tino's behavior, at the same time, I think that Dean continuously using the term fear-mongering in this particular instance almost dismisses Lily Tino's behavior and the fact that this is personalized towards Lily Tino. Because the criticism that Lily Tino was getting over the Disneyland incident wasn't about trans people in general. It was very much a personalized thing about Lily Tino's behavior. And that's why it bothers me that Dean Withers keeps using the term fear-mongering and making it sound like it's just fear-mongering about trans people, when I think that really holding Lily Tino's feet to the fire and making sure that Lily Tino knows, no, this was definitely them critiquing your behavior and not them fear-mongering about trans people, would be a good place to start and a good way of just driving it home for Lily Tino that you are not going to make this in general a trans thing. This is very much a you thing.
Is it saying this trans woman who in their eyes, and by the way, I'm not saying this is from my eyes, from their eyes doesn't pass.
So just to be clear, Dean, are you saying that in your eyes Lily Tino does pass?
Is like, explaining this in a sense in which could be considered inflammatory and like, sexualizing children, fulfilling the stereotype. Or they're just saying a trans woman is doing this, right? I feel like, you take a trans woman, regardless if they do or don't pass in the eyes of the bigoted right, and you put them in that position, and we're going to hear a very similar response.
I will repeat, this is to do with being inappropriate around children. And if anybody were being inappropriate around children, it would get a similar reaction.
And I feel like this response isn't just shared by people on the right. It's kind of something that I'm explaining to you right now. And I know the same reservation is held by a lot of people on the left that are conventionally pro-trans.
And just to give Dean a little bit of credit here, I do appreciate that he points that out to Lily Tino, because I think that that's something that's very important for Lily Tino to understand too, is that this is not a left versus right issue. People across the board do not agree with Lily Tino's behavior on more than just the Disney incident, to be 100% honest, and the fact that it's not a left versus right issue should really tell Lily Tino something.
You know what I mean? Like, once again, like being intentionally inflammatory and kind of like pushing this boundary to generate that fear-mongering, but maybe it is unintentional and you have good intention when you do it, or maybe it is intentional, it's for like more views.
It definitely is for more views. 100,000%.
That ultimately then has like more negative second-order reciprocal effects on other trans people and on other members of the trans community.
And this is where I can see that Dean is really trying to call out Lily Tino, but I can't really say that I respect his approach. Because to be so roundabout and go to second order reciprocal effects, sometimes you just gotta stop with the fancy wording and call people out and tell them exactly what they're doing, Dean. And you've gotta tell people, what you're doing, Lily Tino, is making things harder for other trans people because you want more views. So all this stuff about trying to dance around and be like, second order reciprocal, shut up. And the reason that I'm so clear about this and so animated and adamant about it is because these people will join you in that dance and play all sorts of word games and mental gymnastics with themselves, just not to take responsibility and accountability. And sometimes these people need to hear it in so many words.
Okay. All right. I guess my question to you then would be, what is your solution then?
My solution would be that you behave like a normal adult that knows how to be appropriate in a family-friendly environment.
Right? Like, is the idea that in order to fight back against transphobia, to change people's minds on like, hey, we're not kids, we're not, invading your bathrooms and taking your sports away, right?
But you personally do appear to be doing all of those things in your content on a regular basis.
I was just in the women's room. Trans women are the best at sports. The cool thing about this book is it can be a call and response. So anytime you say, hey, you need to chill, your kid can say it with you.
And then afterwards, you try to gaslight and mansplain that wasn't what you were doing.
Is the idea then to be like well-behaved model citizens, never say anything even a little bit controversial? Are we supposed to kind of be these like goody two-shoes?
Well, when you're in children's spaces like Disneyland, that's exactly what you should do. And if you call that being a goody two-shoes, then being a goody two-shoes it is. But I'll give you an example about me personally. I curse a lot when I'm with my friends. And me and my friends will make dirty jokes and talk about our escapades. But with those same friends, I have had trips to several theme parks because we do enjoy riding the rides. Disney specifically is one that we have been to together. So when we are at Disney, we watch our mouths and we behave like people that are smart enough to understand that there are children in attendance, and really Disneyland is very much a family-friendly or children's space. So what me and my friends are not going to do is be inappropriate, and then if we were to get called out about it, dismiss that as homophobia, which is exactly what Lily Tino is doing right now. Is Lily Tino knows that their behavior was inappropriate. I don't care what anybody says. At the core of Lily Tino does know this. But rather than just accept that, Lily Tino instead tries to dismiss it as being either either transphobia or discrimination because Lily Tino is a clocky trans person.
Make that same type of content from the bedroom at home for the next year, and I bet by the end of that year that there'll be a significantly more positive view about you from like the left, and there won't be as strong like counter responses against you from people on the right.
And just to let you guys know what Dean was responding to right there was Lily Tino had just said in a very long and boring way, so I'm just going to summarize it instead of having played it for you guys, that Lily Tino creates the content that Lily Tino creates in order to draw out the quiet homophobes like the people in her family that vote red, but would never actually confront trans people about that. They just are the silent majority of transphobes, is how Lily Tino put it.
You know what I mean? And on top of that,
you're right. I know you're right. I agree that would probably be the case. But also, if I were to make content out of my, apartment for a year, two things would happen. The first is it just wouldn't be interesting content because I wouldn't be interested in making it because I like to get out and about, right? Like I have no interest in hiding from the world, right?
Well, it's really not about hiding at all. And I think that what we're witnessing right now is Lily, in their own way, admitting, whether Lily realizes it or not, that they know that if it weren't for making people mad, people would pay no attention to Lily Tino, which I have no real proof of this, but I personally think that that's the reason that Lily Tino transitioned in the first place. Because when Lily Tino was Nick...
Hi, my name is Nick.
Nobody paid attention to Nick. Nick was basically invisible. And now that Lily Tino is Lily Tino and no longer Nick, at least in their mind, which to most of us, surprise Lily Tino, you're still Nick. But now that Lily Tino, in Lily Tino's mind, is Lily Tino gets to be this personality that people actually pay attention to, even if it's not the kind of attention that most of us would want. And so Lily Tino no longer has to be the humdrum man they were before.
So you do it on purpose, knowing that if you create the content at Disneyland, it'll be more provocative and inflammatory. Okay, well, this is one of those situations where I don't think that all publicity is good publicity. And I think that other trans people really feel the receiving end of that bad publicity because you are fulfilling, now intentionally we're learning, a lot of the stereotypes perpetuated by people on the right. Like, yes, sure, like a trans person going on the internet and explaining gender sex reassignment surgery with words that like 6-year-olds could understand using a hot dog at Disneyland is something that will be provocative, is something that will generate that publicity. But you must understand that ultimately that publicity doesn't push the pendulum forward for the social acceptance of trans people across the globe, including in America.
Well, that's because Lily Tino doesn't care about anybody but himself. So I don't know why they even try to make it seem like this is about a bigger cause or any type of education or trying to start a conversation. This is about clicks, this is about money, and this is about attention. And I would say that attention or not feeling invisible is at the top of that list.
And inevitably, a lot of trans people will end up feeling the receiving end of the bigotry that will be spontaneously created the moment more people on the right are able to convince others that trans people are delusional, right? Trans people are delusional. Okay, trans people aren't attacking kids. Trans people don't want to make your son, become a girl. Trans people don't want to like go into the women's restrooms and take pictures of little girls and take advantage of them. That's all a lie, okay? And it's a narrative that is being pushed by the GOP in order to get Americans distracted.
It's not about a narrative that's being pushed by the GOP. A lot of what you just mentioned is literally what the trans activists and the left are pushing. It's just that people on the right are willing to actually call that out, and that really does bother the activists and their allies.
So like, once again, this is a very nuanced conversation where you're not like 100% a bad guy. I do think it's a good thing to be like advocating for like the social acceptance of trans people.
But Lily is not doing that. That is not Lily's point. And I think that when you try to make it seem like that is what Lily is doing or that is Lily's aim, you really do a disservice to the entire conversation. And I don't know how you could genuinely think that.
Trans women are women, trans men are men.
Not only is that statement not true, it's not helpful to anybody when you push that.
Can I hop in just for 2 seconds really quick? I'll let you both finish your conversation. Lily, sorry, if I can ask, what are your pronouns?
She, her.
She, her. Okay, perfect. Really quick, and I'll let you guys have it. Chat. Please stop the misgendering in the chat. Be respectful. Keep it together. It doesn't matter whose opinion you actually prefer, whether you agree, disagree. Don't be disrespectful. Don't engage in any type of transphobia in the chat. Please, please, please stop the misgendering. Stop being intentional. The mods are on it. I'm helping the mods as well. Keep it in the guardrails. Sorry, I'll let you two finish your conversation.
And this should have been a huge indicator for Lily Tino of exactly how much they are universally disliked. Because like I said, Dean Withers is a very popular left-wing personality. So the bulk of his audience is going to be a left-wing audience. And they are all misgendering Lily Tino to a point where one of the moderators had to jump on and address it. So a person like Lily Tino should have to ask themselves, why would an audience of people that are supposed to be on my side and supposed to be my allies would be misgendering me, would be as disrespectful as they could possibly be in the mind of a person like me? Maybe it's because everybody sees through what you're doing, Lily Tino, and understands that your goal is not to help out in any way. Your goal is not to start any kind of real conversation, because I will go back to that if what you were trying to do was help other trans people, you wouldn't behave the way you behave on social media.
When a bigot watches my video and sees me in Disney World, they think, oh, Lily is, got like a audience of children that she's waving a corn dog at.
Yeah, because that's what you make it look like. Just like when you did that TikTok where you dressed up like Miss Rachel.
Hi, friends. Today we're going to talk about something super important. What it means to be transgender.
And tried to do a lesson on trans for children in the style of Miss Rachel, knowing that Miss Rachel is a children's show.
Okay, right? Like that's what people think is happening. It's not happening. I'm an adult that enjoys Disney World. I'm a content creator that talks about trans issues. And also you talk about the trans community like it's monolithic, right? Like the trans community is massive.
The trans community is not massive. The trans community is less than 1% of the population, and even a lot of them don't like you. Now, if you want to talk about the AGP community, that might be massive.
And you say like, well, you should talk to people in the trans community. I have. Right. And it's not as black and white as you make it. Right. There are people who look at the content I make and say, I get what she's going for.
Those people are your fellow AGPs, Lily Tino. Most trans people don't claim you. So please stop trying to make it seem like some trans people really get me.
What I'm doing has like a lot of thought put into it. Right. And not everyone sees it the way that you see it, and not all left wing people see it the way they see it. Because what I will say is that you talk about left-wing people who are typically pro-trans, but those people are only pro-trans to a point.
Everyone is only pro anything to a point. I am a gay man. I don't support everything the gay community does. So if your idea of the world not being transphobic is unanimous support, you don't have a realistic goal or a realistic idea of what a baseline for support should be.
Right? Even the left has its own deeply ingrained transphobia to deal with.
People not liking your behavior or not supporting you because you're coming off like a creep is not transphobia and is not anything that anybody needs to deal with.
What I'm working towards is a world in which an adult trans woman can go to Disney World, right? Enjoy herself, right? And not be seen as a predator, right?
Well, then how about not behaving like one while you're there? Because if we're being 100% honest, it isn't just about the cake pops. It was also about you giving reviews of the different women's bathrooms at Disneyland. It was also about you admitting to peeing standing up in the women's bathroom.
I peed standing up, which is something I'm sometimes a little self-conscious about with the sound. Think, oh, is there someone peeing standing up there? But you know what? I peed standing up.
And it was also about you taking selfies in the women's bathroom.
Those Disney bathroom selfies got y'all real upset, huh?
In some cases where there were women and their children in the background while you took those selfies. So is it really just the world unfairly judging you because you're a trans woman, or does your behavior actually need to be called out? And are you the one responsible for all of this because you are the person publicizing your own bad behavior on your own social media platforms?
Those prejudices already exist, whether or not I am making scripted content that is provocative.
So you might as well make them worse, right? Because that makes sense.
I think it's a good goal to want to achieve the goal of like more societal trans acceptance. I just don't think you're going to achieve that goal by talking about genitalia at Disneyland.
The fact that someone even had to bring that to Lily Tino's attention lets you know how unserious Lily Tino is about their supposed goal.
Okay. I mean,
Do you see the point?
My goal is one drop in a bucket, right? I'm not like, yes, this video is going to solve the problem, right? I make videos, and when I think about them, I'm thinking maybe I can use this interesting backdrop, this catchy backdrop, and this provocative concept to explain a concept to some people who don't know about it.
And the problem with that thinking is if your backdrop enrages people to a point where they don't actually take in any of what it is you're saying, then they miss the entire lesson that you're supposedly trying to teach.
Do you think that that video pushed the pendulum? Did it help?
In terms of what?
To achieve that goal of more like pro-trans acceptance in society.
I think that video taught some people about bottom surgery and that it was an interesting, funny, and engaging way of doing it.
I don't think a single person learned anything about bottom surgery from that video. I think most were too disgusted by your setting to take any of that in.
But ultimately, the amount of people that were taught about bottom surgery legitimately through that video of you talking about genitalia at Disneyland, do you think that the pros of more people knowing about the way that bottom surgery operates was offset by the harm of legitimizing or at least perceptionally legitimizing a far-right stereotype by materially giving them an example to point towards to push the pendulum in the wrong direction?
Dean, at some point you're gonna have to get it through your thick head. Lily Tino does not care about any of that. Lily Tino is there for the clicks.
It's like the idea of inception, right? Am I idea in people's minds that was never there before, that trans people are predators? Or is that deep-seated prejudice that was always there and needs to be addressed brought to the surface by my content?
Now, this is what really bothers me about Lily Tino, is Lily Tino tries to make it seem like this is much deeper than it is, and that Lily Tino is trying to start a conversation that they're clearly not trying to start. The reason that people think you're a creep, Lily Tino, is because you behave like a creep. That reflects badly on other trans people, but a lot of times when people are criticizing you, what they're criticizing is you specifically and your behavior. But rather than just take that in and accept that, you want to turn it into this bigger thing about it being the way that people just see trans people in general, so that reflects on you instead, and that's what you're dealing with. No, what you're dealing with is the consequences of your own actions and your own behaviors, and your refusal to accept that is why you will never grow as a person, and why it is that if your goal is any kind of education or any kind of acceptance for other trans people, you will always fail at that. You refuse to understand that at a point, you do have to behave like any other adult. It doesn't matter how you identify. Because really, if you truly do believe that these were just deep-seated perceptions people had about trans people, you wouldn't be reinforcing those beliefs that you claim people already have about trans people for online attention and money.
You know what, Loki? All right, I think I'm just going to leave you this, and I'm probably going to move back onto the debates. I wouldn't care if it's like a cis or a trans person. If anybody was talking about genitals at Disney, I would think it's weird. You know, I'm just going to be real. Like, clearly, I think that the reaction of, oh, that's weird, is going to be exacerbated due to the fact that you're trans, and that, like, as you said, is going to be rooted within transphobia, 110%. But it's like, just don't even give them that.
Okay, so he just said exacerbated again, and I absolutely hate that. But to get to what Dean is saying, I think that Dean is doing a huge disservice to Lily Tino and everybody involved by still referring to this as transphobia or talking about transphobia when the conversation here really isn't transphobia. The conversation is that Lily Tino's behavior needs to be called out. Lily Tino is the only one in charge of themselves, so Lily Tino needs to correct this behavior. And the reason that I'm so adamant about Dean Withers actually calling that out for what it is and not dismissing it as transphobia is because a person like Lily Tino, at the end of the day and at the end of this conversation, instead of having any clarity that even a person like Dean Withers sees through what it is Lily Tino is doing and will let them know that they're destructive to a community that they claim to speak for. Instead, what Lily Tino will take away from this is even Dean understands that this is all based in transphobia. It's not based in transphobia. It's based in the fact that you personally are behaving like a creep and blaming people's reactions to that on transphobia.
Who we really need to be talking about is the actual bigots, right? How am I responsible for that?
Yes, Lily Tino, very healthy and adult of you. Never stop shifting the blame.
This conversation wouldn't be happening on this live the way it is if I were a passing trans woman. It just wouldn't, right?
And that's where we'll end that particular clip, because if you haven't noticed, it all circles back to transphobia and passability, which, if you ask me, is a huge cope and way of denying responsibility for Lily Tino's being horrible representation for the community. And while I have to be honest when I say that I do somewhat respect Dean Withers for even attempting to do this, at the same time, I think that the only way anybody will ever get through to Lily Tino, if it's even possible, is just to be 100% honest with Lily Tino and just keep taking away the excuses as they talk. I personally would love to have a conversation with Lily Tino because I would have no politically correct filter, which is what I think in a lot of ways got in Dean Withers' way as far as this conversation goes, because he knows that he has a heavily left-leaning audience, so if he goes too hard on Lily Tino, he's going to accidentally say the wrong thing, which with a person like me that's been in the LGBT community for the last 30 years, had trans friends for the last 30 years, I can completely take the gloves off and tell you things exactly the way that you need to hear them if I think you're a trans person that's messing up. And yeah, people can try to cancel me and people can get mad at me for it, but there's really going to be no consequence, because at the end of the day, anybody that would listen to a person like me talk to a person like Lily Tino would know that I know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm very familiar with the community that you claim you're representing, and I can tell you piece by piece how you're getting in the way of being positive representation for that community and how it is you're making life harder for them. And that's really where I'm at on it. Let me know what you guys think down below. Like, comment, subscribe, hype the video if you can. Other than that, as always, thank you for watching. This has been Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.